Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, guten Tag. Another week in the books, almost. I'm Andrew. I'm a certified mindfulness meditation coach in the Unified Mindfulness System. You can find out more about at unifiedmindfulness.com. And thanks for everyone that's joined in. I'm curious, some folks have mentioned that I cut in and cut out a little bit. So when folks watch the live stream, when it's done and recorded, there's sometimes a jump, and then streaming live, there's a little bit of loading. So it's hard for me to know that. I don't see it. So if that's the thing you're seeing, I'd love to know a little more about that, and I can try to tweak that. I see folks kind of come and go occasionally, and so I don't know if that is related. So the numbers that are up in the view for me. So this week we've been kind of playing around with very light or bare bones economical techniques, or econo, as I borrow from D. Boon, Mike Watt, George Hurley, the Minutemen, the epic SST band, the Minutemen. And so today we're going to just play with a little bit in the technique on our something side for our contrast sit. We'll play with observe versus feel within that part, and then we'll do our do nothing technique to follow up. So you'll occasionally hear meditation instruction around observe the breath, which some folks can say or think of as you're kind of reifying or pulling this observer, or creating an observer. And so we can just observe without there being an observer. So the observing is kind of what the ing part of that is something that we can experience. Whenever we're doing a meditation technique, in theory, you can think about this as you're familiarizing the mind with a particular set of states. So it's that familiarization really that we're practicing. And then ideally, when we're out in the world, as Shinzen says, when we're bopping around doing our things, then we're able to begin to notice those mind states. So we'll play with this idea of observing, and then play with feeling. So what's the difference between observing sensation or feeling the sensation? Like feeling the actual sensation. So I'll offer the breath for folks that are able to connect with the breath, and then the body sensations for folks that prefer not to use the breath. For this, we'll use the label feel when we're feeling it. And yeah, I think that's it. So again, what we're doing is what I'm laying out is these contrast sits, where we have a technique that is providing us with some sort of structure of efforting, and then we're allowing a sort of laid back stance of non-effort. And this idea is there's a difference between these two things. Lump them all together, though, as meditation, regardless kind of how we may feel about them. And so I find it interesting because your practice really probably benefits from the thing that's in between these, meaning that you're always trying to look at how am I showing up in this day or this moment, and then being able to find some sort of beneficial way of being in between the efforting and the non-efforting. So it sounds a little more highbrow than it really is. But so if you have any questions or such, and today's do the something part of our technique, just something I've been playing with, because I notice meditation teachers will often point this out. So if you listen to any meditations from Susan Piver, she'll note when you're doing sort of these breath awareness practices, which I think are shamatha, but I don't know. For sure. She talks about feeling the breath, not just observing the breath. So there's very much this notion of feeling versus that position of observing. So, yeah. All right. So I'm going to take no questions as you're ready to sit and try this out. Again, we'll be sitting for about 15 minutes. And I'll invite the bell. I encourage you to adopt a position that helps you, or a posture in a seating position, that helps you be both relaxed and alert, upright, dignified. As you settle into your sit, if you begin to feel a little scattered, one thing you can do before you resume the technique or going back to allowing and dropping, if we're in the do nothing phase, is you can always check in with the posture first. See how are we sitting. And then to begin, you can do a little bit of a shoulder shrug and tense the shoulders up and allow them to drop. And in doing that, you may notice can kind of adjust the spine slightly. Again, that upright, dignified quality. And just seeing if there's any tension in the body. So perhaps tension in the forehead or the eyes or the jaw and neck, shoulders. Seeing if that tension relaxes as you notice it. If it doesn't, this is our first opportunity to cultivate a no big deal attitude. Just being okay with that. And then a few breaths, intentional breaths. For these, our approach is to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Breathe in through the nose slowly, out through the nose slowly. And in doing that, we breathe low into the bottom of the lungs. Again, slow and low is our tempo. You can sort of just be in this spot right now, that calm settling. So that's an option. I sometimes forget to offer this option. So again, choose your own adventure here. Either observe the breath or observe the weight and sensation of the body sitting. For the breath, you may notice a slight expansion of the ribs as you breathe into your belly. Or a very subtle rising and settling of the torso, almost like a old school bellows that you would use to stoke a fire. And if you're focusing on the body, you may, in the weight of the body, the gravity that's holding you in place, you may notice a subtle settling. There's a downward action as we sit. So our stance right now is one of observing. Just because we're trying to settle in and observe doesn't mean that our attention is going to remain where we're directing it. So maybe distracted by sounds around you or other things pulling at your attention. Again, there's a no big deal kind of quality that we can offer for that. We know the attention is going to get pulled away. Offer almost a rejoicing or a settling or a celebration, and I see that it's been pulled away. I bring it back to the breath, to my body. Just observe. So, in observing, we likely have a good idea of the location that we were able to observe that sensation, be it the breath or the connected, rooted stableness of the body. So, here I invite you to shift to that location to feel, leave our observation behind, but to feel the sensation. When we're feeling into that sensation, there's a potential for being more and more into the sensation, really feeling into that. So if you connect to the breath, there's probably a place that you connect deeply to it. and offers you that into it quality. And if you're experimenting with that gravity or the weighted stability of the body, maybe it's the areas where your body contacts where you're sitting, so the sits bones or back of the thighs, the hamstrings maybe. And if you're seated cross-legged, so half lotus or whatever you can do, maybe it's the sensation of the knees, that tripod stability posture. Just exploring how into that sensation you can get. And if it helps, you can add in now the label feel in either case. Okay. So now let's drop that technique and shift into the coasting part of our set. We'll let go of the technique, regardless of if it was pleasing or unpleasing or both. And just allow the attention to be free range. So explore, do nothing. And if you're feeling scattered, just a reminder to check in on your posture. As we sit in this non-efforting stance, we're playing the long game. Over time, the settling and non-effort adds up. And we're still training the 3 skills: concentration, clarity, and equanimity. So if your eyes have been closed, I invite you to open them. If your gaze has been dropped, I invite you to lift that, connect to your surroundings. So we have a little bit of time. If you have reports or questions, I will do my best to respond, hopefully in a helpful way. Yeah, so Sarah, posture. So I do. This is part of the. This is partly my sort of Zen bent on things coming in. I would definitely say it's okay to shift and to basically allow your body to be in whatever position is sort of good for today. Especially if you're sort of wrapped up in a blanket and there's a sort of quality to that. I think the way that meditation has come to North America, we tend to focus on the sitting aspect of meditation. And it's somewhat helpful to always remind that laying down and standing are completely valid postures as well. And so the notion would be to be aware of the posture. So it's, I think I have had people encourage me to not sit in the posture that's correct, and then to see what the tone of your sits are like. So they're like, answer it for yourself. And so I have a tendency to like to lean back and type while I'm working. And I know that I'm putting myself in a position where maybe my body, I'm not going to have that relaxed alertness that I'm looking for, but that's kind of how I want to engage with whatever I'm doing at that moment. So I'm okay with that. And so to some degrees, to co-opt a comment from Jeff Warren about, take back lazy, right? And use it for your own benefit. So I would say play around with it. There's always a light, or I would hope that we can hold our practice with a lightness where we can experiment and be curious. So that's what I would offer. It's not really an answer. It's just but yeah. And so the being aware, the posture is more, if I'm in a situation and I'm sitting and I want to know about and I want to know kind of, or be aware of how those things are connected, that's really the linkage. So it's a bit like the advice of, you learn the rules so you can break the rules. I'd offer that. And yeah, taking back lazy is, I think that's the name of the meditation that Jeff writes for Dan Harris's wife. So Yeah, and then to Angie's point, the Yoga Nidra is pretty awesome. My girlfriend is part of a yoga studio that was doing Yoga Nidra at home, and so I got to join in a little bit on that. So Angie, I'll just quick read your report here. Oh, interesting. Okay, so but you're getting better at the low and slow. Yeah. So the idea of the slow breathing. So when people say take a deep breath, sometimes people fill their lungs really quickly, and when they fill their lungs really quickly, there's not as much. There may not be as much activation of the lower lungs. And so I think Angie's also read the James Nestor book on breath, and so that's partly where I started picking up that idea that a deep breath is actually a low breath. So when we say breathe deep, we're breathing low into the lungs. So, and then that intuit quality, you'll occasionally hear Jeff Warren drop that in to about the feeling, how into that can you be. A thing to play around with is to when you know a location of a sensation is to feel around it. It's kind of an interesting thing to play around with. So I can't remember. I think in the first week we did feel flow. So when you feel around a sensation, there'll often be elements or you can contact flow around a sensation. So that's kind of an interesting thing to experiment with. So, okay, cool. So that's great. Well, thank you so much, Angie and Sarah, and those that were on and off a little bit there. We'll be back next week. Please know other people are already lobbying for me to keep doing this in December, so I have to sort of make sure I can that the time is still good in December. So we'll do that, and I won't have this apparently mustache that makes me look moderately French. So yeah, thanks everyone. Have a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday.